Hey everybody! Today I'm going to be harvesting the rest of my bok choy cabbage, and I'm going to show you how to make kimchi. Kimchi is like sauerkraut. It's Korean and it's got a lot of garlic and chili pepper spices in it. So let's go ahead and pick this and I'll show you how to prepare it. I'm also going to include some of these radishes, kind of make it a spicy kimchi with that radish zing. All of this is getting overgrown, getting pretty big, so it's about time to ferment it for long-term storage. I'm also going to pick some of these onions. They've been grown all winter. We're going to use fresh onions for this as well. You might notice that I've used sudsy water, and that's because of these beetles that started getting into the plants. I don't use pesticides, and so the soapy water will kill them, and I'll rinse it off really well. Thoroughly rinsed everything. I know it doesn't look like much now, but this is going to be delicious Korean kimchi within a week. So what I'm going to do is take the entire bok choy plant, except for the roots. I'm going to chop it up fine, and we're going to start putting it in this bucket. And I'm also going to chop up these radishes, the whole bulb, the roots, the leaves, the whole thing, put them in the bucket as well. Once I have a layer across the entire bottom, I'm going to cover it with canning salt, just a thin layer. And then squish it and massage it in. And I'm going to repeat that for this entire basket of bok choy and radishes. Just keep layering it. Every time you get a layer about an inch or two, cover it with salt, keep massaging it in, go all the way till it's all chopped up and salted. Here's all that bok choy cabbage all chopped up and salted, and I've added just enough water to cover it. I'm going to put a plate on here with a weight to keep all this submersed under the salt water for a couple hours. Okay, to keep all that cabbage submersed, I'm going to put a plate in there that's just on top of it, and then a weight. In my case, I'm just using a mason jar, quart-sized mason jar, filled with water. And now all those leaves are submersed in the salt water. I'm going to cover this and leave it for a few hours. While the cabbage is starting to soften up in all that salt water, I'm going to go ahead and put a whole bunch of chopped garlic. This is an entire head of garlic, multiple cloves, and some grated ginger into a pan. And then I'm going to add probably about a tablespoon of crushed red pepper flakes. This is red pepper. This is red pepper from my garden. And I'm going to do probably about 10 tablespoons of this Korean red pepper. Just a bunch. And then sesame oil. I might do two big tablespoons of that. And then at least 2, maybe 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. This is fermented fish sauce from the Asian market. And a good sprinkle, maybe about a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'm going to cut up all of these onions and a lot of the greens and add that to the paste. Next, I'm going to mix all this together. A lot of people recommend wearing gloves because you have all this chili pepper in there. But if you wash your hands pretty thoroughly, it's not a big deal. If it's too dry, add a little bit more of the sesame oil or fish sauce. You want it to be kind of a sticky paste, not too wet. The cabbage and radish greens have been sitting in the salt water for a couple hours. Now I'm going to drain as much as I can and then give it a couple rinses. Alright, this is the second rinsing. I'm just making sure I get as much of that salt out as possible. It's still going to be really salty, but just a couple rinses, maybe 3, and I'll meet you back in the kitchen. Okay, so now I'm going to take all of that drained bok choy cabbage and radish greens and radish roots, add it to my chili paste, and just work it in, really work it in every single little bit, work that paste in, get it nice and saturated throughout. Swishing it between every little leaf, every chopped little piece, make sure it's nice and juicy, all covered in that nice chili paste. The next thing we're going to do is put it in some clean jars, pack it down really tight, and let it sit at room temperature with the lid on for 2 to 5 days, and it will naturally ferment until it starts bubbling and producing acids, and then it's ready to eat. To get it into the jar as cleanly as possible, I use a little canning funnel, and there's really no particular way to do this other than just get it in there and stamp it down with a little wooden spoon, maybe a handle or something. So what I do is just jam it down in there really tight. Okay, now that the jars are full, I'm going to loosely put these lids on, very loosely, it's not even tight, and then I keep them as they're fermenting in a pan so that if they bubble over, it'll go into the pan. I'm going to let these sit at room temperature for the better part of a week, and every day turn the lid on tight, turn them upside down, shake them a little bit, and in a couple days we'll start seeing them bubble as they ferment and become acidic kimchi. So the kimchi has been fermenting for about a week. You can see a lot of gas bubbles here. It's probably under pressure, so this is probably going to drip or possibly even spray a little bit when I open it. Alright, not too bad. Ooh, it smells pretty pungent. And you see all the gas bubbles escaping. It's bubbling up here, and it's ready to eat.